Welcome to another edition of Think Your Way to an Epic Life. And today's guest has been on before. Her name is Susanne. She was a professor, an actual professor in colleges. And she gave all that up. She had climbed to the top and found out it wasn't really what she wanted to do. And she became a hypnotherapist. And she's got some really cool things. We may wonder about past trauma in our lives. And we may, as parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, whatever, we may be actually causing trauma for the younger generation. And so she's going to go into what should we do, what should we not do. It's a really fascinating episode. Hope you enjoy. So Susanne, you transitioned from being a college professor to a hypnotist. Why? What was that about?
That's such a great question. I think about this all the time. My mind's still reeling as I think back at how much my life changed when I made that decision. It all really started with a podcast. I just, out of the blue, it was actually a question my daughter asked, do you believe in past lives? I didn't know. And I thought, well, let me see. And we started listening to a podcast while we were on the road. It was called the Past Lives Podcast. It's recently changed its name. By Simon Brown, and it's now, I think, Our Paranormal Afterlife. Anyway, I thought it was just fascinating. I had never really thought about past lives, and he just does a really good job of explaining it. And then when you listen to story after story after story, it started to kind of feel real to me. And I thought, well, I'm going to do one. I'm going to do a past life regression hypnosis session. And when I did, I treated that to myself one year. It was just fascinating. It was, it opened my eyes up to, how powerful our minds are and what it is we're capable of being able to see and know and do. And I just kind of was thinking and even said out loud to the hypnotherapist, I think I want to do what you want to do. And it really surprised me when it came out of my mouth. I don't even think I had been thinking that. And then I thought, well, I'll just do a training. I'm not going to leave my career. I'm a professor. I'm not going to do that. And I did the training, and the training was mind-boggling. And then during the training, the professor or the teacher, the instructor said, Susanne, what is it you want to do with hypnosis? And I was like, well, I don't know. I hadn't even thought about that yet. And I thought, well, I want to be a professional hypnotherapist. And voila, it was like the world just started running. It was, everything was so much faster and so exciting. And I just could feel myself being whooshed into this path of knowing and of purpose. And I did some hypnotherapy for a while on top of my full-time job as a professor. And then I just knew I was going to make it and I was going to be fine. And it was time to step away from a job at the university that I wasn't finding very fulfilling anymore. And so that's how I got here. Of course, there's a lot of little in-between stories I can tell, but that's the gist of it.
Okay, so you got all kinds of confirmation that you were doing the right thing. Even though all that, you were very clear. Everything was it was like the road opened up for you. It was all green light. Did you get pushback from friends and family?
Ooh, good question. Probably largely the pushback was on my own of worrying what they thought. I don't know what they thought. My family actually was incredibly supportive. They were so glad to see me happy. I had been grumble, miserable, complain, for a long time. And then suddenly I was lit up and excited, and I couldn't wait to tell them about what I was doing. So they were really supportive. My son in particular was like, you just need to go for it. You just need to go for it. And that had meant so much to me to hear him, encourage me in that way. But yeah, I had a lot of doubts for a long time because I worried what other people would think. I know that hypnotism seems like this weird woo-woo thing, and who in their right mind steps away from a job as a university professor to become a hypnotist? But the more that I did it and the more validation I understood without doubt that this is powerful, meaningful work that makes a difference in people's lives, I started to care less what anybody had to say about it. It didn't matter because I know that what I'm doing matters. And now I can stand in it so solidly without any doubt. And I don't really care what anybody thinks because it works and it means something.
That's really powerful. So what gave you that absolute assurance? Like personally, did you have any breakthroughs in your own life?
Lots of breakthroughs. I certainly had my own experiences. Like even while I was in training, we would practice on one another, and just in those little practice sessions where I didn't even know I was doing it right, I was clearing, lifelong issues. I had financial blocks, fear of spending money was one of my big ones. And that was knocked out in like 20-minute practice session. And I was like, well, that's pretty amazing. And that had a big impact on my life and my marriage and my family. So that was huge. And I worked with people pleasing during training, and that was pretty great to knock out because then I don't really care what anybody else thinks after that was cleared. And, I still marvel that I can be in spaces and not care at all what people think, where, in the past I was really self-conscious and worrying about what everybody thought. And I just can stand in my truth now. And then, of course, through all the various sessions that I facilitated, almost always there's something in it for me, an aha for me, an awareness, and sometimes even feelings of healing that I'm receiving. And so, yeah, a lot of personal breakthroughs that I've received personally, and just, by being a bystander, being a facilitator of this process.
Okay, so you struggled with things your entire life, and in 20 minutes, it was completely relieved. Why is hypnotherapy so powerful?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, think about those issues that you've been holding on to, right? That they're getting in the way of you being able to show up as your best self. They're hurting your relationships. They feel bad as you're doing them, right? So just giving that example of my fear of spending money, it was becoming debilitating. It was getting worse and worse each year. And it was, always a point of contention. Like we couldn't even go out to dinner because I was so afraid that, it was going to break the bank or something. It didn't even make sense. In that session, I was able to let that go. There was a part of me that needed to be healed. And when, one of the things we do in hypnosis is regress. And I had always assumed that my fear of spending money was related to my father losing his job when I was in high school. But actually it wasn't. It was actually something even earlier in life, related to, something I overheard as a really young child who really didn't even really understand money, but I understood that it was causing my parents some stress. And once I was able to acknowledge that, and the beautiful thing about hypnosis is I could be there and show up for my younger self and let her know things were okay and provide her comfort. My subconscious mind said, okay, you don't need to be afraid of spending money anymore because you're okay. You're okay. And it just was gone. Yeah. And what freedom, to be able to let go of these lifelong issues that were really holding me back. And I did it in a really short amount of time. It's so powerful.
Yeah, it totally is. I should give full disclosure. I am one of your clients, and you came on the podcast once before. So guys, please go watch the podcast before. And we're just going deeper this time. We're just going a little bit deeper and asking more questions. So for somebody who is watching this and they're going, sounds good, but it's a little scary. And how can I really trust you? Like, how do I open up like that?
There's a lot to that. One is almost always hypnotherapists have consultation calls, and there's a reason for that. That's to determine whether or not we feel good with each other. Do the way that I present myself, do you feel trusting of me? Do you like what I'm saying? Do you feel like we have rapport? I think it's really important to screen the person that you're working with. Check out their reviews, see what other people are saying. I think that has a lot of weight. Those things aren't fake. And if people are saying good things, then you probably can trust that person. But if you have fear of it, it may not be the right thing for you. because those who come in, and I don't have very many that are really reluctant or fearful, but on occasion I do, that are really, really nervous, really afraid, really doubtful. They've got themselves so closed off, they're not going to really be able to enjoy this. But what I will say is that there's a lot of misunderstandings about what hypnosis is, that I think if people understood how easy it is and how simple it is, there may be less fear related to it. And, what I mean by that is, of course, what we see in Hollywood, where people think that their minds are going to be controlled by somebody, or that they're going to go to sleep and they're going to lose themselves in some way. And, you've experienced this. It's not like this at all. It's really very simple. It's a matter of, closing your eyes and kind of focusing inward, relaxing a bit, and sort of connecting in with what feels like your imagination. But it's actually your subconscious mind. So, you're awake, you're aware, you're in control. We're dialoguing the whole time. You'll remember absolutely everything about it. There's no, part of any kind of session where I'm in control. And that stuff you see in, stage hypnosis where people quack like a duck. I get that joke all the time. That is the only reason that happens is because the person is allowing themselves to quack like a duck. They are not being controlled by another person.
Yeah. It is so different than what people would expect. I don't know what other people expect. They might expect something completely differently, but I'm so impressed that you said it might not be for you right now. If it does require, from a practitioner's point of view, it does require a letting go, letting go of control. Not that you're you're just trying to tell everybody you're not controlling anybody, but you have to let go, let your old self let go and not be controlling of the situation.
What's it like for you when you're, we've done this a few times now. If you were to describe it, how is it different than what you thought it might have been? What you thought it might have been like?
It is so much more conversational. It is, even when things are happening and everyone is going to be different, and the word trance is probably something that is maybe intimidating, and you don't need to be intimidated by it. You go into a trance state, and it's probably the most relaxing thing you could. I don't know of much else that's more relaxing than when you're truly in the trance state, and you guide me through. You ask me questions like, what are you feeling right now? What are you seeing right now? If you're not seeing something, you're explaining while you're going. So it's much more conversational. You're very much in control, and it is quick. I mean, it's things that used to be very, very important to me are not important to me at all anymore. It's almost scary. It's almost like, but you're losing the parts of you that you really need to lose.
Yeah. And it's not so much the losing, it's deciding to let go of the emotion that's attached to that part of yourself, right? Because you still are that person and you still have the memories of it. It's not like your mind has been cleared. It's like, but the importance that you used to give it, it just doesn't seem to have quite the same grip that it used to. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And is that part of working on the 90% instead of the 10%?
Okay, let's talk about what that means. Yeah. So, I like to use the analogy of an iceberg, right? So, 90% of the way that our mind works is actually under the surface of that iceberg. The little tip that points out is the 10% that most of us are aware that we're operating in. That's our conscious mind, right? The conscious mind is analytical. It's busy. It's easily distracted. It's always trying to filter things. Yes, but. And the subconscious mind are all those reactions that just sort of come up automatically. And it's your body's beautiful way of protecting you. All of your subconscious reactions are the way that your body has said, yes, this is keeping you alive. And, That can be when flinching, when we touch something hot. That's a subconscious reaction that's under the surface. You can't control that with your conscious mind, right? That's under the surface. And all of our beliefs that we picked up from our parents, from the people around us, people that we saw as important, right? They are really part of how we programmed in our beliefs. Those are subconscious beliefs that if you said, well, I want to change up this, belief that the sky is blue, I can try all I want in my conscious mind to change up that belief, and it's not going to happen. I'm going to have to dive into the surface and figure out, well, who told me the sky was blue? And why did I believe the sky was blue? And I'm going to have to work with that deeper part of us.
What are the most common issues that people come to a hypnotherapist for?
That's a great question. Worthiness has been a big one lately. Am I worthy of love? Am I worthy of making money? Of having a nice house, of nice things. Worthiness comes up all the time. Perfectionism, people pleasing, fears of all sorts. Fear of flying is a big one, but fear of driving, really unusual fears that you'd be surprised by. Self-confidence, feelings of anxiety. I like to say it as like feelings of anxiety because I probably had 3 people this week who came to me saying that they have anxiety, but remembering that anxiety is actually a subconscious reaction. It's your body's beautiful way of saying something's wrong, right? So we can't call that a syndrome because that's actually something that's beautiful. What's really important is kind of diving in and finding out what's causing that. And it's almost always a fear. There's something that you're afraid of that needs to be addressed. So even though people think they're coming to see me for anxiety, they're coming to see me for the fear that's feeding that anxiety.
Okay. And it is crazy. So of all those things that people come to you for, how often is it something that their mom or their dad or some adult in their life, aunt, uncle, grandparent, inadvertently might have said to them? What do parents, what do people who influence children, teachers, what do we all need to know to not do that we're doing and we don't even realize we're doing it?
All right, that's a loaded question too. Let's jump into that. So the first 6-7 years of our lives, we are simply existing as if we're in a hypnotic state. There's no filter, there's no analysis, the conscious mind doesn't really exist. So you're all just subconscious reactions. You're being programmed. So the people that are around us, for better, for worse, and I'd like to believe that everybody has the best of intentions. They are, the reasons why we believe what we believe about ourselves. Interesting fun fact, fear of flying is almost never about flying. It's almost always about control. And that control issue almost always, I would say 80% of the people I work with came from being in the crib. And any number of things can happen in that crib because you're not feeling a whole lot of control when you're a baby in the crib and you're hungry and food's not coming to you, or your diaper's wet and that's not coming, or your parents are having an argument, or you're scared. Now, I know I'm a parent and I'm pretty sure that my kid's diaper was wet, or he was hungry at some point, or she was, left for way too long. So I don't think that we are purposely causing trauma, but it's happening all the time because we're into such a vulnerable place. Now, what should parents know? Boy, I wish I had known what I know now then. I wonder if I could have done better because I am a human and I'm doing the best I can. And, the beautiful people who raised me did the best they can and certainly made mistakes, right? But to understand how impactful every little thing really is, honestly, from the time they're in utero, I've regressed clients who have discovered issues that they picked up while being inside of mom, right? And mom's having an argument with dad. And so she's doubting whether or not this pregnancy is an okay thing. And the kid is already taking this on. Oh, I better be a good baby because mom is stressed.
Wow.
So that's a lot of responsibility, right? How do we guard ourselves to protect our children? I think doing the very best we can, remembering to come from a place of love. Every time we're disciplining our child or guiding our child, try to lead with the heart, because these are vulnerable young people who are going to develop into adults. The other thing that I would say, I wish I had known as a parent, is to teach children what to do with their emotions. So I know that I was often just sent to my room. You're crying, you're upset, go to your room. Nobody wanted to talk to me about why I was upset. Nobody wanted to hear it because I was probably being really annoying, upset. So if I had been taught what to do with those emotions, go and sit with them, go write those out, or go step outside into the natural world and yell as loud as you want to, let it go, or give it to the earth in some way, or learn to meditate, or do something with it. But don't just go in and sit in your room and be mad until somebody comes and lets you out, because a lot of the issues that we hold as adults are the unprocessed emotions that we didn't have the time or ability to release. And they can be the smallest of things. So, and also one more thing, just, this is such a loaded question. There's so much to it. Helping children understand that they're the only ones responsible for their feelings. So another person can't make them feel anything, right? John didn't make you feel bad about yourself. You're feeling bad about yourself because you're feeling bad about yourself. And when you can take responsibility for your feelings, it makes us feel less victimized. It's like, well, what do I need to believe about myself to be able to stand up to John, or to push off whatever it is he's saying. So there's a lot to that. A lot of resources we can give kids to help them be more resilient and feel less like a victim in this pretty hard life.
Yeah, it's tough. It is really, really a tough life. So basically, pretty much everyone probably has trauma. Some people know they have it. Some people are completely oblivious. They don't know that it's that happened 30 years ago. What are you talking about? How could that impact me today? So let's say someone comes to you and they are open and they come and they want help. And how do you actually get trauma that happened 30 years ago out?
Yeah. Well, I call trauma capital T trauma and lowercase t trauma. And really, the first thing I would say is you should be working with a therapist if you've got trauma. I think the action of reflecting and learning and working with a professional therapist is most important. I do work with a lot of therapists who then refer their clients to me, saying, okay, they're reflecting, they're doing the work, but they're holding it in their body. So I do a lot of somatic work, right? Feeling it in your body. Where do you feel it? If you took a moment right now to feel into your body and maybe feel into a place where you feel hurt. If you feel into your body, there's a physical sensation of pain, particularly if there's a heartbreak or a loss of some sort. In fact, I just worked with a woman today who lost a pet and she was really feeling it in her heart, right? So I had her feel into that, touch it, feel it, if that energy could speak to you, what is it saying? If you could lift it out of your heart, what does it look like? What would it say to you? If it could transport you back to where it came from, where would it take you? So we're just working with all aspects of the physical sensation of trauma, or maybe the emotional attachment. And ideally what we're doing, it gets stored because there was so much emotion attached to it. And maybe it didn't have time to be released. And so it can manifest in many ways: anxiety, anger, depression, illness. It can come out in lots of ways. And so it is important to find it in your body, and whether it's just lifting it out and releasing it or working to address the emotional need that was unmet. So for today, with the woman whose dog died, we really worked on giving her some time to process and grieve and to say goodbye. And, to do what needs to be done so she doesn't have to hold it so closely to her heart.
Right. Okay. So every profession, you have your favorite stuff you like to do and the stuff that you do because it's your profession. What's your favorite? If someone comes to you and needs help, what is your favorite person to work with? Not person, but issue.
I don't know that I have a favorite issue. I definitely have sessions that really amp me up that I just find so exhilarating and so exciting. I really like working with repeat clients. I kind of have a following. My clients love me and they keep coming back. And the beautiful thing about hypnosis is every session gets better, because people understand it better. They're not so afraid. So we can make more and more progress. I am so delighted with progress. I love seeing people feel better. And it really can happen just within one session. I mean, significant change can happen within one session. That's so rewarding to me. So I love it when people can get there. So that kind of jazzes me up, right? Makes me feel really good. I am it's what's called a transpersonal and spiritual hypnotherapist. So the large majority of my clients come to me with regular issues, right? Fear of flying, people pleasing, confidence, whatever these issues might be. And yet somehow or another, something opens within them spiritually. And I'm not doing anything to guide that. It's just that there's an awareness that there's something bigger or deeper or more beautiful, that God's self within. And when they find that, there's something that just opens up within a person, and to be able to be present with that, it's such a privilege. It's so exciting. And then a lot of times that part, that spiritual part, almost has an energy of its own. It's like I can stop facilitating a session and now something bigger than me is taking over. I get chills down my spine. I can just feel all kinds of feelings. It's so great. So those sessions are really fun for me too.
How cool to really, truly love what you get to do and the people that you get to serve. And I can say you really do. You do a great job. I can't imagine life without you now. It's awesome.
Well, I'll just jump in and say too that I think, going back to your first question about leaving, my work at the university to do this work, what I wasn't feeling was like the work really was very impactful, towards in the last few years of my career at the university. What I feel is really moving is to feel like I'm making a difference in the world and that the work matters. And I don't have doubts about that. Every day I know that the work that I'm facilitating is making a difference. And I believe that's what we're all searching for. We want to know that it matters, and we want to know that we're serving humanity in some way. So a lot of people, when they come to see me, they say they feel stuck, right? They're tired of working for corporate, organizations. I bet I hear this every day. They're tired of it because it doesn't feel like they're really making a difference. And I always tell people, Jill, well, in what way do you want to serve? In what way do you want to use your gifts to make the world a better place? And start leaning into that and paying attention to those gifts, which is what I did, when I decided to become a hypnotherapist. I didn't even know they were my gifts, and voila, there they were. And I think it's as rewarding as it is because the difference it makes.
It is. You're definitely in the flow of where you should be. And I feel incredibly fortunate that I lucked onto you because you came to my podcast and I liked you immediately, and then I was able to trust you. And I feel very fortunate that I was lucky to get a great hypnotherapist the very first time. So how do you go about picking a really good hypnotherapist?
Yeah. The beautiful thing about working with a hypnotherapist is you've got the whole world to choose from, because an online session is just as effective as an in-person session. In both cases, your eyes are closed and the hypnotist's voice, excuse me, is in your ear. And so you've got the whole world to look at. And so therefore, finding somebody that resonates with you, look at their website, look at their picture, look at their reviews, look at their social media pages, have a consultation call with them, whatever it is that will help you feel like this is a person that you truly connect with. It's all about rapport. You've got to trust the person. You've got to feel good about what they're doing, and you need to, feel safe when you're working with them.
Very, very, very important. So what are some of the issues that hypnotism is super powerful and just is shocking in the results?
Smoking. That's just, it's so tangible. I use it as an example all the time. People can be smoking for 30 years, a pack a day, I've tried everything to quit. I've done nicotine patches, blah, blah, blah. And, they come in and they have a session, and I sell a 3-session package when I do smoking cessation. Most of them are done after 1 session, no cravings, no, weight gain. It's just done. And, the second session is to make sure it's really done. The third session is a Band-Aid session. It's like, all right, if you need this anytime in the year, it's there. And nobody ever uses that third session. I mean, it's just incredible. Like, that is so tangible. We know what it's like. I don't have an addiction to nicotine, but I've seen other people struggle with it. And to watch people be done with it, after an hour and a half session, it's just, that's really cool.
Talk about life changing, and when you change one thing in your life, you're changing everything, because you're not taking in, your health is changing. You're not spending your money. You're not stinky. You're like,
right.
Everything is better when you change one thing like that. And so ladies and gentlemen, if you have something that is just bugging you that is not good, if I was to ask you as a coach, what is the one thing in your personal life, the one thing that if you were to fix it would make everything else better or easier, what would you say? And call Susanne and meet with her, and then get that one thing just knocked out. Like, it's really amazing. Really, when you're thinking about, you are on steroids. If you've been in self-development for 20 years and then you've been working on the 10%, imagine the 20 years on the 90% and how much further you can go and how much faster. What are all the different things that you do in your business?
Yeah. What do I do? I work one-on-one with clients daily. I run workshops. So usually once a month, I offer an online workshop that's meant for people to start to learn how to work with mind body, just to learn to start to work with mind body techniques and practices that can help make their lives better. I speak at retreats. I speak with group organizations. I facilitated even, like sports groups, friends groups, and working types of organizations. I worked with one group recently. We worked with some visioning and celebrating the good stuff. So those are some of the things that I do on a daily basis. I hope to grow and expand. Would really like to work even more so with groups.
Okay. So my final question for you is, with everything that you've got going, we have continuing ed in real estate. What are you doing to make sure that you're up on the latest, greatest information in your world?
Yeah, you can't really stop me from continuing my education. I find this so exciting and so interesting that I am never without a book, without a podcast. I've attended multiple trainings. I'm a junkie for them, and I need to stop because they're expensive. I am always going. I'm working with people or reaching out to people, networking in groups where more experienced people than me have experience, and we network, we share ideas. It's just so fun. It was recently on vacation, and I had to set aside 2 days for me to read a fiction book so I could totally check out, because I couldn't stop reading my books and the pile of books. I love learning. I find the subconscious mind absolutely fascinating, and I want to be the best that I can be.
You're the best for me, that's for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're so welcome. I'm grateful to be a part of this, and I thank you for the opportunity to share what I love so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for everything you do.